The charred remains of a mother and her one-year-old son found following that massive fire that destroyed a shanty town in the Pigeon Peak community. The government also steps in with their plans. Find out more in the Bahamas tonight.
2 homicides brings in the new year, and ZNS News is there. And the results are in. Find out who comes in the new year a winner. The Bahamas Tonight starts now.
Now in HD. ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This portion of the news brought to you by BTC Every Day.
Good evening and welcome to the Bahamas Tonight. I'm Andrew Knowles. We're following 2 big stories tonight that you'll see only here on ZNS. A massive fire in Abaco destroys more than 50 homes and kills 2 people. And then 2 homicides bring in the new year here in Nassau. First, from the fire. Hundreds of people tonight are without a home, and another family is grieving the loss of a mother and her 1-year-old son. Government is now taking a closer look at how those shantytown communities are able to exist without the proper regulations in place. Hours after the fire tore through the community, our Janaea Noel Ferguson was on the ground where officers from Grand Bahama and Nassau were brought in to assist in the investigation.
A mother and her 1-year-old son burned to death in a massive fire in the Pigeon Peak shantytown community in Abaco New Year's morning. Grief-stricken residents crowded the site where the charred remains were found. The victims' relatives say that Darlene Jacob and her son DJ were preparing for a New Year's Eve church service when the fire started.
When she was told not close outside, she was crying because she thought the baby was inside. She didn't know where the baby was. Then my sister, she thought the baby was. They say the baby was inside. So she ran inside to go save the baby, and she never came out.
Now, those who lost their homes flooded the area hoping to salvage anything that was left. Government officials soon arrived to assess the damage. Volunteer firefighters who helped to out the blaze were applauded for their efforts. They described the challenges they encountered.
There were so many vehicles here, so many people back and forth, so many houses congested together. You couldn't actually get in between them to fight the fire, and with the houses so close together, once one catches, the next one catches, then we had numerous explosions.
While we're trying to fight the fire, the residents here were trying to take out whatever possessions they could, taking out doors, beds, all kinds of stuff. So it was a very difficult time getting in.
Deputy Prime Minister Philip Davis and Minister of Social Services Melanie Griffin said regular monitoring of such sites will be carried out to ensure that a tragedy such as this one is not repeated as the government works toward cleaning up all shanty towns.
We've just appointed a new engineer and has been assigned. He's taking up residence now, and part of his job is to be visiting these areas and to ensure that no buildings are built in Abaco.
Deputy Prime Minister Philip Davis also sending a strong message to those residents of this community. He's advising them that if they want the government's help, they must first help themselves.
We want you to build safe homes.
Nous besoin pour bâtir bon kay.
And we want you to do it properly. Otherwise, you will continue to have matters like this happening to you.
Now, residents of that community were also encouraged to come forward with their information so that proper assessments can be made. But many of them feared that this could end up in an immigration roundup. Griffin, however, said in this situation, that would not be the case.
This is a program to help them to get past these set of circumstances. So everything we do with them, it has no implications with regard to immigration.
Now temporary assistance will be made available at Camp Abaco for these scores of residents that are displaced. Janaea Noel Ferguson, ZNS Network News.
Well, Director of the National Emergency Management Agency, Captain Stephen Russell, was on the ground this morning as well. He said NEMA's focus is now finding proper living accommodations for those displaced.
One of our key concerns is the shelter for the displaced persons. We learned that some 75 households were displaced and roughly 250 persons. So there's a concern as we go into the evening as to where we're going to set up these persons who need some assistance. So we're looking at Camp Abaco. I'm going to go and look at that site in probably in the next half an hour to see if that place is prepared to a certain extent to receive those persons who may want some sort of shelter tonight. So that's our immediate priority in terms of finding some sort of accommodations for them as they go into the night. Some basic food and clothing or linen as necessary.
MP for North Abaco Renato Curry said he's saddened by the events, but noted that this is an all too familiar problem in shantytown communities. The area MP insists that building codes have to be followed.
Hearts goes out to them and their loss at this time. But as the Deputy Prime Minister would have mentioned, as well as the Minister, we have to adhere to the building codes. Moving forward, there has to be prevention that is put in place to not allow this kind of event to occur. As you know, it's a history of having this kind of event, fires destroyed over time after time. And so moving forward has to be a change in structure. And so they can look to see that change coming in the very near future.
The bloodshed continues on the streets of the capital as 2 people were killed in separate incidents. After 2 this morning, police say a man was sitting in a car in the Hospital Lane area when a gunman approached him and shot him several times. The victim was taken to hospital where he later died. And a few hours earlier, police were called to Ida Street where they found another young man lying in a pool of blood. We're told that the victim was walking in the area when a culprit approached him and opened fire. He was also taken to hospital where he died. Well, 2013 ended with a record number of murders. Yesterday morning, the body of a young man was discovered in bushes behind the Yellow Elder Gardens Primary School. That victim was also shot multiple times. This all comes on the heels of last Friday's massacre in Fox Hill, where 4 people were killed and 7 others hospitalized. In the wake of that tragedy, government has put in additional measures in hopes of breaking the back of crime. Among them, more saturation patrols, the reinstatement of the 12-hour shift, and the adoption of a strike force strategy. A male pedestrian has become the first traffic fatality for 2014 following a traffic accident early this morning. The body of the lifeless man lay on the ground, covered as onlookers watched on while police processed the scene. According to police, the accident occurred along Prince Charles Drive when the as yet unidentified man was struck by a vehicle that was traveling east along the highway. The driver appeared to be a participant in the 2014 New Year's Day Junkanoo Parade.
6:10 a.m. The police received a report of a traffic accident that occurred in the vicinity of the Elizabeth Estates Police Station. On the arrival, they met an adult male lying on the northern side of that Prince Charles corridor. The male was struck by a vehicle which was traveling east along the Prince Charles corridor. From our record, this should be the first recorded fatality for the year 2014 in New Providence.
It's unknown which direction the pedestrian was traveling in at the time. Police say the investigation is still in the early stages, and at this point, they cannot confirm if speed or alcohol played a factor in the fatality. However, the public is urged to take extra road safety precautions and pay particular attention to pedestrians on the street.
The beginning of the new year. We know we have a lot of participants from the New Year's Day Junkanoo Parade. We're asking you if you are a bit in that sleepy mood driving home. We're asking you to stop at a friend, stop at the shack, and take a nap before driving on the road. We're going to ask all persons now to continue to be cautious of the pedestrians as they walk the corridors or major thoroughfares within New Providence. We have some pedestrians at the last minute, in particular kids, who are unpredictable. They will just dart in front of moving vehicles.
Family members of 19-year-old Shaquille Demerit are still reeling from his tragic death. Kelly was one of 4 people killed in that mass shooting last Friday in the Fox Hill community. Jimonita Swain spoke to Shaquille's family about how they're coping in the aftermath.
Sonia Kemp said she never thought a quick walk around the corner for Chinese food would end in the death of her eldest son. Shaquille Demerit, a recent BTBI graduate, had only been working for 1 week at his new barber shop when his life was snuffed out. He was one of 4 people killed in that mass shooting in the Foxhill community last Friday.
I walked downstairs. By the time I got downstairs, a little boy is banging on my door. He said, Miss Kemp, Keely got shot in his head. Jesus. When I ran to the park, met my child on the ground. I don't know what to do to my child.
The distraught mother said when she got to him, he was still alive.
Everybody was thinking he was dead. He turned himself over to try to talk to me, but his lungs was full of blood, and all of the blood just poured out from him, and he tried to talk to me.
She said a lady got to him before her, and she recounted her experience with the teen during his final hours.
She said when the incident took place, she said she was a few minutes away and she ran down there. And she said she saw all the bodies on the ground, but something just drew her straight to Shaquille. And she knelt down to him, and she held his hand, she whispered in his ears, and she said, "Do you know Jesus? Squeeze my hand." And he squeezed her hand. And she asked him, "Is Jesus your Lord and Savior?" And he squeezed her hand again. And she said she prayed with him. And she patted him on his back, and she told him, just rest, baby, just rest.
An emotional father, Michael Kelly, said he left Shaquille 5 minutes before the shooting and was supposed to pick him up 15 minutes later to take him to the movies. He said coping is hard, but something must be done about this crime problem.
I think it's time for our government, the people, to stand up and say, hey, enough is enough. We need to deal with these people. Let's get rid of them. I mean, I know the criminals have family, mothers, fathers. They need to tell their children, hey, I know what you're doing, stop.
His stepfather, Carl Kemp, said he's fed up with crime.
To deal with this vexing situation, we have to put the police back on the streets to stop persons from carrying weapons in their car. We have to come up with plans that people could see that something is happening so that the fears of people will be relieved.
Mr. Kemp had these words for those responsible for the incident.
I just wanted to say to the person that killed my baby, just turn yourself in. Give a hurting mother a little bit of ease some of my pain.
So far, no one has been charged with this slaying. However, at least 60 people were arrested and questioned in connection with the crime. Jiminy DeSwain, ZNS Network News.
In our first look at weather, that front boundary has backed up over central Florida, paving the way for near clearing skies over much of the northwest Bahamas. But outside of our studios just now, we have just a few clouds, temperature 80 degrees, relative humidity 58%. Your winds are out of the southeast at 8 knots, barometric pressure 1,019.4 millibars, that's 30.10, and it is steady. But stay tuned. Temperatures around the family violence, travel, and boating forecast is still to come.
Still to come in the Bahamas tonight, find out who won the New Year's Day Junkanoo Parade. We've got the results coming up.
Back in the full swing thanks to its new...
And they're off in sports. Hot Rod Racing crosses the finish line in a new home for the new year. You're watching the Bahamas Tonight.
Elizabeth Sports Center, and it's all about providing opportunities in a safe environment.
Brought to you by Shell HELIX Ultra. Performance you can see.